Welcome to the Deliberate Leaders Podcast with Emerging Talent. I'm your host, Anna. On this podcast, we connect with professionals in their 20s and 30s to gain insight into their journeys, aspirations, and motivations. I'm excited to introduce to you Kyenna Jensen with Kyenna. Hello.
Hi, so happy to be talking with you today.
Good. Okay, so first question, help me understand your career journey.
This is actually one of my favorite questions to answer, and honestly, could probably take the whole podcast. So I'll try to be a little succinct with it. So we'll start with college, actually. In college, I was originally trying to pursue my elementary education degree. Didn't quite work out with program, just ended up kind of being jaded and decided that I wanted to go a completely different direction and I had 1 year left of school and got my degree in history, which actually ended up being the best decision for me. And I did not realize it at the time. But with my history degree, I was writing these, 20-page research papers and I was in love with it. And I was one of those people that got those papers done like a week before everyone else, where everyone else who was passionate about degree, like hated the actual paper part. So I kind of realized at that point that writing is something that I wanted to do, but I also had like this huge passion for traveling. So when I did graduate, I halted my professional journey for a little while and decided to travel for, I think it was about 2 years total, on and off. So I lived in Japan for 3 months, traveled Mediterranean, traveled Northern Europe, and was able to experience all these things I have dreamed about when I was a kid and in college and high school as well. So after that, I ended up working at a tasting room as the tasting room manager for a local winery. And that was awesome because I actually got to continue my education through UC Davis. And so I took wine making courses. And so I'm great at reading a wine label. So if anyone ever has any questions on that, just let me know because they're actually really complicated for some reason, but they do tell you a lot. And funny enough, I don't even drink wine anymore. So I know a lot about something that I really don't partake in. But while I was working at the wineries when the pandemic hit, and so my whole working career, I started when I was 14. I was either go full time, going to school, or going to school and working as close to full time as possible. And then all of a sudden, I went from 40 hours to 4 to 6 hours a week. And I was living by myself. And so I was going stir crazy and I was taking all these different classes. I took a class on ancient Egyptian art and archaeology because I just wanted to see if I was like, I'm so interested in this. If I love it, then I know I can take online classes and actually pay for them. So then I took copywriting classes and studied that a lot. And then I ended up getting some freelance clients through Upwork. And then it kind of grew from there. And while I was doing that journey, I realized freelancing wasn't sustainable at that time. So I actually found a salaried position as well. And it was actually in marketing and writing. And I have no background in marketing, but you know how startups will hire people with just very interesting backgrounds. And so that was actually, as one coworker said, working in a startup is like a pressure cooker for learning because you have to learn so much in such a short period of time. And I think I learned more in that 2 year period than I did in my 6 years of school. And so after I would say April is when I actually decided that 60 hours a week wasn't sustainable anymore with freelance clients and working full time. So I officially started my own business and been launching from there. Yeah, it's been an exciting journey, but it's been a balance trying to figure out billable hours, non-billable hours, and then on top of it, I'm also trying to write a book, a fantasy novel. So it's the complete opposite of all the other writing that I'm doing. So it's been a really fun, interesting journey building my schedule around so many different things.
Yeah, the beauty of you get to make it however you want it to be, right?
Exactly. I always joke, I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask my boss if I can have this Friday off. And my sister and boyfriend are very jealous because it's always yes.
Yes, it's always yes. That's very cool, and a lot of different moving parts that all randomly got you here, which is really cool.
Mhm.
How are you defining success inside of that?
So success for me has totally evolved. I mean, when I first, got back from traveling, when I wasn't making a lot of money, because it's not easy to make money while you're traveling. And so that like goal of reaching $50,000 a year to me was kind of like mind blowing. And so just reaching that, I was like, okay, that's my version of success. But once I got to that level, which wasn't actually hard at all, it's just like it took a little bit, and then you start making progress. And so once I reached that mark, I had to redefine my version of success. And so I've kind of thought about more of success as in that, like that balance, that work-life balance, or that work-life harmony. So it's success to me is making enough money to be comfortable, but also being able to spend the time doing what I love, like still being able to travel, being able to take time off. Because when you're working a salary job, sometimes PTO is very hard to come by. And so it's just now for me, I feel like I'm a lot more successful because I'm in control of my schedule, my life, and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Um, cool. Do you have a mentor that's helping you get through the transitions and the change and all the lessons that you're learning?
Actually, yeah, I do have a couple. So, my previous manager at my salaried job, she was awesome. I have no idea. She's like the same age as me, but she has so much knowledge, and I was always astounded by it. And we had a really good relationship, so we still continued that relationship after me leaving, because it was all on great terms, and still open doors and everything. And so talking with her and just kind of bouncing ideas off of her has been really great. She actually introduced me to a friend of hers in Napa Valley, talked with her, and she has a business coach that she fully recommended. So going on to my second mentor is I actually got a business coach through my other mentor. And so it's a little bit more of an expensive mentor, but it's been totally worth it. I've done like a full audit of what I have and what I need. Especially when you're at like that beginning stage of building a business. Like as a person that's worked in content, worked in social media, and worked in branding, I know what to do, but it's hard pushing yourself when you're doing that for everyone else at the same time.
Isn't that interesting? Like, we know what we need to do, but then like doing is hard. But then when we hire a coach that's telling us to do the things, it like
Mhm.
becomes easier. Like, how have you seen that? Like yeah,
Yeah, well, one, it's when you spend money too, like that, and then also pair that with the accountability of the coach. Like it's kind of like being in like college and being in school for me, the idea of spending thousands of dollars. I'm like, okay, I need to actually try my hardest. I need to do this. Like if this person's telling me to do this or this person's telling me to read this, I'm going to read it. Like they know what they're talking about. And obviously I think they do because I paid for it. And so it's been really, really beneficial on so many different levels, like like on the level of like the help that she's provided, but also just like on the like psychological level of like, okay, like I know no matter what, I have someone to help me, or I have someone that has gone through this or knows other people that has gone through this. So it gives me freedom to make more mistakes, or to even not even make mistakes, but attempt mistakes. Because sometimes mistakes are beautiful in their own way, because that's my whole career journey. It's just different mistakes that have ended up in being better than I could have imagined.
yeah. When you're making your goals, do you think about them as short term, long term, and then how do you balance writing the book and then growing your business?
I am a big goal maker. So I usually, always like just like everyone else, start at the beginning of the year, and I love handwriting everything. So I write like a little bullet journal, and I have my little checklist. But I also, as I go through the year, I know that my goals aren't necessarily always going to be the same. So like an example is my Goodreads goal last year. I was so busy. Beginning of the year, my goal I think was 45 books. It's always tries to be 5 books more than the previous year. But I knew like halfway through, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make that, and it's making it not enjoyable. Like trying to reach this goal that's not quite attainable. So I've learned to be more flexible with my goals. Actually, even working in the startup environment, I think is really helped that, because your goals have to change all the time because expectations change all the time. So like it's really good to have goals, but I've learned that keeping track of my goals and then keeping track of the changes like underneath them. So if I have a goal of like reading 45 books and I'm like, oh, that's not quite going to work, I write underneath it, let's change that to 35. So if I do change my goals, I still know why I changed them, how I changed them, and like what direction they went. So it's not just like, oh, I think this isn't going to work, I'm just going to stop doing it. And then it's just you're stop doing something because it's hard. That's not what I'm trying to do. So you have to keep open-minded, but still be strict at the same time.
Yeah. Um, Documenting things I feel like has really been an important thing for me to learn. Like for you to look
Mm-hmm.
back and know why you did something is so much more valuable than just deciding that moment and then never remembering what happened, what you were thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, and then how are you balancing like the book and also growing your business?
So that has been changing. So before I started freelancing, I was really, really into learning about productivity, time management. Now that I've like gotten on my own, I realize that I need to be a little bit more intuitive with my scheduling. I can't be so rigid with it. It made more sense when I was super, super, super busy, when I was working 60 hours a week and I had my freelancing and I also had my salary position. But now it's been a little bit different of a journey. And sorry, what was the question again? I totally
Um,
messed up on that.
that's okay. How are you prioritizing or like balancing the book and also growing your business?
Right. Now I remember exactly where I was going. So um, I started with it being on book Fridays. So I only write my book on Fridays. And then Monday through Wednesday is definitely more of the heavily client days. So I try to schedule all my meetings at the beginning of the week. But it's definitely morphed a little bit, like, especially if you have appointments. If some people have to have a meeting on a Friday, I try doing the full no meeting Friday, but I have to be a little bit more flexible, just like everyone else is flexible with me. So it's kind of like a give and take. So with my book, I've kind of now I've read some books like Stephen King's like on writing, and I've realized it's just fit it into your day when you can. It doesn't have to be so structured. And so I still do have Fridays being like my primary book day, unless I have some other things I need to get caught up a little bit. But I'll be in the bathroom sometimes, like getting ready in the morning, and I'm like, oh, this is a great idea for a scene. Like, this just clicked in my head. And so here I am taking notes on my phone. And then I was like, what's taking you so long to get ready?
Yeah.
But here I am. I just put out like 250 words of a random scene that I was like, oh, okay, well. So it's being more flexible and intuitive with your scheduling more so than being rigid. That has helped me the most because I was getting really stressed out and anxious when I wasn't following my schedule. And now that it's been more intuitive, I feel like I am actually more productive and I'm more excited to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good insight. Thank you. Have how have you managed like when you start to feel doubt or uncertainty about what you're doing?
That has taken a lot of work. Um, so a lot of inner work, honestly, like because everyone, starts off, especially with the imposter syndrome and going into a field where I don't have a traditional background. It definitely hit hard at first, but I've come to realize that when I read other people's stuff and I read my stuff, I'm like, okay, my stuff is just as good as other people's stuff. So you're so much more of a critic to yourself than you are to other people. And once you get over that hump and you realize that you have talent, and if you are able to work on it and you have the drive to work on it, you can do with it what you want. Like it's as easy as that. It's as easy as just like believing in yourself and having the confidence to know that even if you don't succeed at first, you will succeed if you try. Like no one's like people are born with innate talents, but like especially like writing, like anyone could be a good writer if they try. And people don't realize that. They're always like, oh, I wish I could write. Like, you can write if you practice every day. That's all it takes is just practicing.
Yeah, that's good. Um, are there any career related goals or aspirations that you've been hesitant to pursue?
Mm, I was thinking about that, and I think for me at this point, that's kind of what I've been trying to do is just be open to everything. Is the whole point of launching my own business is like doing the things that I didn't have the opportunity to do before, just like radar, like being on this podcast. So I wouldn't say there's anything that I'm really hesitant to do because if I see something that's like really intriguing or interesting, I'm like, let's try it out. Like that's where I'm at right now. It's an exciting place to be. And if I like 6 months ago, I probably would have been like, okay, well, that's a really huge time commitment. I probably won't be able to do that. Or if I do it, it would only be like half of the quality that I would want it. So is it even worth it? So it's just being at the different stage right now and a different mindset that I'm willing to try all the things because why not?
Yes. Um, and then moving into like back when you were an employee, how did you navigate workplace politics and conflict?
We actually had at my last position a leadership coach, which was really helpful, especially when you're in the tech industry and it's a heavily male dominated world, and there's just a lot of different communication styles. Um, so I think just having at least a mediator of some sort was really, really beneficial. Um, Fortunately for me, though, I was on a small team of four people for the marketing team, and it was four very distinct personalities. But when you realize, and like we did a lot of workshopping together, and when you realize everyone's strengths and weaknesses, you're able to build on that and you're able to delegate. And that was really cool and eye-opening to see because a lot of the other teams I'd worked on before, like in the service industry or when I worked with children, like it was a whole bunch different structure. It wasn't a lot of collaboration. It wasn't a lot of like, building each other up. It was a lot of just I'm gonna look this way, get my work done, and just be done.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to move into rapid fire. So I'm going to just ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind, answer it, and then we'll move on.
Mhm.
Um, what is your go-to source of inspiration when you need to refocus and motivate yourself as a leader?
Books, 100% books. I am a huge reader, and it's especially like with leadership books. It's one person putting in all their ideas on a topic that they're passionate about, and it's really I get fired up when I read books or read things that people are fired up about. So that would be what I usually go to, or online articles.
Yeah. What's a self-development practice that you swear by?
Mindfulness and meditation, just taking a break, especially sometimes things get really overwhelming. And for me, just taking that moment just to pause and just let everything sink in, to be aware of everything, it kind of just helps me realize that there's more than just this moment and just these feelings in this moment.
If you could develop a leadership trait overnight, what would it be?
Um, Probably being louder. I'm very quiet and introverted, so I guess maybe being able to mirror extroversion a little bit more. Being able to integrate with groups a little bit more quickly. Small talk is really hard sometimes.
Yes. What is your best tip or trick or tool to leverage your personal and professional life?
Hmm. I would say for me, it's just been task management and project management. Like ever since I learned about the Kanban board, it's been a game changer.
Tell me more. The what?
So it's like it's used a lot in like software development and just in project management. But the Kanban board is where you have your tasks and you move them to different stages, and it's just more of a visual like representation of it. And just having that like where you're like not started, in review, completed, and just like seeing where everything's at and seeing what things are quicker and easily being able to move is really helpful for me. And in that same vein, I don't know if you've heard of the Eisenhower matrix.
Mm-mm.
That is just kind of looking at your tasks and giving them a priority. So it's basically like it's a grid, and so it's like high priority, like quick task versus low priority, like very hard task. Like which one are you going to do first? It's a lot more eloquently said when you actually look it up, but it's just good for prioritization because sometimes you get bogged down with the small, minute details when in reality there's really quick and fast hitting things that you can do that provide more value.
Yeah, and good as someone who delegates too. Like,
Hmm.
if my boss tells me to do something, I'm doing it immediately. Whereas maybe she just meant like, this is a
Hmm.
tomorrow thing or end of the week. I'm gonna
Right.
ask
That
you.
is definitely something I've been working on.
Yeah, I feel lag. I'm sorry. I'm gonna make you choose like what
No
is
worries.
one book that you recommend?
Leadership book or just any book ever?
Leadership or self-development?
Well, I did just read this a month or so ago, and so I've just really like when I'm learning about leadership, especially when America and society is so extroverted dominant, that like there is power in introversion and there is power in being quiet and active listening. And so I when I read Quiet by is it Susan Cain, I believe her name is, it was just really eye opening just because especially in a fast-paced like tech environment with an open layout office, like extroversion is key there. And I was going to the basement all the time working like by myself, or I was going to the coffee shop working, and that's okay. And I felt so weird, and I felt like I felt different, and I felt like, does that make me lesser of a worker? And I did people think of me that way? And so reading that book, it made me realize more of the value of what I bring to the table too.
Oh, I love that. Kyenna, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast and share about your career journey and how you've gotten here and where you're going. If someone has resonated with what you've said and want to reach out for you to be like a short-term mentor or just have coffee with you, what is the best way they can get a hold of you?
My email is just hello@kyenna.com. My name is Kye and in A, or you can reach out on LinkedIn as well, Kyenna Jensen. It's really easy to find because my name is pretty unique. So I'll probably be the first one. Most of my pictures, my hair is blonde too, so don't get confused by the much different hair color.
Yes, men post pictures of themselves much younger and then, older.
Right.
So blonde hair to red hair, you're fine.
Right. It's very recent change, so maybe I'll update it one day, but maybe
Um,
not.
yes. So again, thank you for your time and sharing your insights. For our listeners, this is a Spotify exclusive podcast. So if you enjoy the content, please subscribe and follow this channel. If you know someone who could benefit from hearing this, please send it their way too. You can find delivered directions on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and locally in Boise, Idaho. Thank you for listening.